The moonlit encounter. The night was quiet on the alien moon. The sky was full of silver light, and the air was cold enough to bite the skin. In the middle of the forest, shadows moved slowly under tall black trees. Leaves whispered in the soft wind, but there was no other sound. Most creatures were hiding in their nests, waiting for the sun to rise. Far away, something large moved between the trees. It was a wolf, but not like the wolves of Earth. This one was twice the size, with fur that glowed faintly like starlight. His eyes were deep blue, almost shining, and each step was silent. His name, unknown to any human, was Ravak, but soon he would be known by another name. Ravak was a hunter, a guardian of his own territory. For years, he had walked these forests alone, keeping away from others of his kind. He did not need anyone. He did not trust anyone, but this night was different. A strange smell was in the air, sharp, metallic, and hot. It did not belong to the forest. It came from the east, near the mountain stream. Ravak's ears twitched. His nose caught another scent, faint but clear, the scent of fear. He followed it, moving like a shadow. The forest around him grew quiet, as if it too was listening. And then, through the trees, he saw a glow. Not the soft light of the moon. This was harsh, broken, and flashing. Ravak stopped at the edge of a clearing. Before him lay the wreckage of something he had never seen before. It was made of metal, twisted and torn apart. Smoke rose from it in thin black threads. Small sparks flickered in the darkness. He stepped closer, his paws careful on the cold ground. The smell of burning metal mixed with something else, something alive. Then he heard it. A sound so soft, it was almost lost in the wind. A whimper. Ravak's ears turned toward the sound. His eyes searched the wreckage. And then, between two broken panels, he saw her. A small human child. She was sitting on the ground, hugging her knees. Her hair was tangled, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. She wore a torn white suit with strange markings on it. There was a cut on her cheek, and her lips trembled. For a long moment, Ravak stood still. He had seen humans before, but never this close. They were weak creatures, fragile, and usually came with machines. But this one was alone. She saw him, and froze. For a heartbeat, they simply looked at each other. The wolf's glowing eyes locked with hers. She did not scream. She did not run. Slowly, with trembling fingers, she reached out her small hand. Ravak tilted his head. He could smell her fear, but also something else, trust. A sound broke the stillness. From the trees beyond the clearing, low growls rose. Shapes moved. In the darkness, predators. Ravak's eyes narrowed. The forest was dangerous at night, but the smell of blood and fire had drawn hunters. The child was in their path. Without thinking, he stepped forward, his large head lowered, and he sniffed the air around her. She smelled of smoke, metal, and fear. She was trembling. A shadow lunged from the trees, a long thin creature with teeth like knives. Ravak reacted instantly. His paw struck the ground, his body surged forward, and with a single powerful bite, he crushed the predator's neck. The others in the shadows hissed, their yellow eyes glowing. The girl gasped, her tiny hands gripping her knees. Ravak turned back to her. There was no more time. He lowered his head, gently took the fabric of her suit in his jaws, and lifted her from the wreckage. She weighed almost nothing to him. With the speed of a shadow, he ran into the forest. Behind them, the predators gave chase. Their claws tore at the earth, their snarls echoing in the trees. But Ravak was faster. His powerful legs carried him over roots and rocks, his glowing fur flashing between the trees. The girl clung to him, her eyes wide, her small voice caught in her throat. She had no idea where they were going, only that this strange, terrifying wolf was taking her away from death. The forest around them was alive with noise now, branches snapping, growls in the dark, the rush of water from a nearby stream. Ravak leaped over it in one bound. His paws hit the soft ground, and he did not slow. Minutes passed like seconds. Slowly, the sounds of the chase faded. The predators gave up, unwilling to follow him deeper into his territory. At last, Ravak slowed. He stopped near a large fallen tree, its roots twisted into a wall of wood and stone. Behind it was a small cave, hidden from sight. He set the girl down gently on the soft moss inside. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with confusion and fear. Ravak sat at the cave's entrance, his ears listening for danger. The night was quiet again. The girl's lips moved. At first, the sound was just a whisper. Then he heard it clearly. "Thank you," He did not understand her words, but he understood her tone. For the first time in years, Ravak did not feel alone. Outside, the moonlight fell across the forest, silver and soft. In that light, the alien wolf and the human child sat together, in silence, two strangers brought together by fate, in a world that would soon test them both, but for now, she was safe. For now, he was her guardian, and in the shadows of the forest, something unseen watched them, a pair of red eyes glowing, in the dark, waiting for the right moment to strike. The story had only just begun. The bond in the shadows, the days that followed were quiet, but never peaceful. The cave became their home. It was small, hidden behind twisted roots and stone, safe from wandering eyes. Outside, the forest was alive with danger, strange beasts with sharp claws, hunters with weapons, and shadows that moved even when there was no wind. Inside, the air was warm, lit by the faint blue glow of crystals growing in the walls. The alien wolf Ravak always sat near the entrance. His glowing eyes watched the dark forest while the little human girl slept on a bed of soft moss. She still did not speak much. Her voice was weak, her body thin, but her eyes followed him, always. On the second day, she gave him a name. She sat cross-legged on the moss, staring at his silver fur shining in the light. Moonlight, she said softly, pointing at him. Ravak tilted his head. He did not understand human words, but he understood her meaning. She was calling him something gentle. From that day, she called him Moonlight. Every morning, Moonlight would leave the cave to hunt. He moved silently through the forest, catching small lizard-like creatures or climbing to take glowing fruits from high branches. He brought them back, dropping them near her with a quiet grunt. At first, she was scared to eat, but hunger was stronger than fear. When she ate, her face relaxed. When she smiled for the first time, it was small, just the corner of her mouth, lifting, but it was enough to make something stir inside him. At night, the forest grew restless. Strange calls echoed in the distance. Sometimes, bright lights moved between the trees, not animals, but something far worse. The girl learned to hide at the first sign. If she saw Moonlight's ears twitch and his eyes narrow, she would crawl into a small hollow in the cave wall and stay there, silent as stone. On the fifth night, the lights came closer. Moonlight crouched at the cave's mouth, his nose catching a familiar scent, metal, oil, and the sour smell of machines. He remembered it from the crash site. This was the scent of the hunters. They moved through the forest in groups, their steps slow and careful. Their eyes were not natural. They glowed red behind black masks. Long weapons hung in their hands, humming with deadly energy. They were not looking for food. They were looking for her. Moonlight stayed still, his body a shadow against the rocks. The girl was curled deep in the hollow, her hands pressed to her mouth to stop any sound. The hunters passed, but Moonlight knew they would return. Each time, they were coming closer. The days turned into a rhythm: hunt, feed, protect, hide. The girl grew stronger. She began to talk to him more, even though he did not understand her words. She would point to things, the moon, the glowing crystals, the flowing stream nearby, and name them in her soft voice. He learned the meaning through her gestures. Sometimes, she would place her small hand on his fur and rest there. At first, he tensed. No one had touched him in years, but her touch was warm, gentle. It reminded him of something from long ago, before he became a lone hunter. One evening, a storm came, the alien sky turned black, and lightning split the clouds. Rain fell in sheets, drumming on the rocks. The wind howled through the forest like a beast. The girl sat close to Moonlight, her body shaking from the cold. He wrapped his tail around her, blocking the wind. A loud crack echoed through the night, a tree falling somewhere nearby. Moonlight's ears went up. He smelled movement through the curtain of rain. He saw them. The hunters, they were using the storm as cover. Moonlight's muscles tightened. They were too close now, only a few dozen steps away. He could hear the hiss of their weapons, see the faint red glow through the rain. The girl gripped his fur, whispering in fear. He lowered his head, his blue eyes locking on hers. She did not know his language, but she understood his promise. I will not let them take you. The hunters stopped just short of the cave, scanning the area. One raised a device that gave a shrill beep. They had found a heat signature. Moonlight moved fast, in one motion. He grabbed the girl gently by her suit and leaped deeper into the forest. His powerful legs carried them over rocks and fallen trees. The rain blurred the world into silver lines. But he knew these paths well. The hunters followed, their red lights weaving between the trees. Energy blasts cracked in the air, striking the ground near him. Moonlight ran harder, heart pounding. He had to lose them before they reached the deeper parts of the forest. There were things there even he avoided. Finally, he reached the glowing, crystal lake. The water shimmered like liquid light. He set the girl down and turned, placing himself between her and the approaching danger. The hunters came into view. Their leader raised his weapon. Moonlight let out a deep, bone-shaking growl. It was not the sound of a normal predator, it was the roar of a guardian. His fur bristled, his eyes burned bright, and the ground seemed to tremble under his paws. For a moment, the hunters hesitated. They had expected an animal. They had found something far more dangerous. One fired. The blast struck the ground near Moonlight, burning the earth. The wolf lunged forward, a blur of silver and blue. He slammed into the nearest hunter, sending him crashing into the lake. The water glowed brighter, swallowing him. The others fired wildly, but Moonlight moved like lightning. He knocked one into a tree, ripped the weapon from another's hands, and vanished into the rain again. When they tried to regroup, he was gone. So was the girl. Back in the cave, the girl sat wrapped in his tail, safe but shaken. She looked at him with wide eyes. "You saved me," she whispered. Moonlight lay down at the entrance, watching the storm fade into the night. He was bleeding from a cut on his side, but he ignored it. His ears stayed alert. The hunters had seen him now. They knew he was not just a beast, and they would come again soon, and in greater numbers, but it did not matter, because she was his now. His to protect, his to keep safe in the shadows. And anyone who came for her would not leave this forest alive. The last stand under the moon. The forest was quiet again, but it was not the peace of safety. It was the heavy stillness before a storm. Moonlight lay at the entrance of the cave, his glowing blue eyes fixed on the dark trees. The wound on his side burned, but he did not rest. He could feel it. The hunters were coming back. This time, they would not leave until they found the girl. Inside, the little human sat near the wall of the cave, hugging her knees. She could see the way Moonlight kept looking at the forest. She understood without words. "They'll come," she whispered. Moonlight turned his head toward her. His ears twitched, and for a moment, the soft light of the crystals made his silver fur shine like the moon. His gaze told her everything. "Stay hidden. Trust me." That night, the moon was full. Its silver light poured over the forest, turning every leaf and branch into a shadow of black and white. Far away, faint red lights moved between the trees. They were slow at first, then faster. The hunters had found the path. Moonlight rose to his feet. He nudged the girl gently toward the small hollow in the back of the cave. She climbed in without argument, pressing herself into the shadows. He placed his large paw at the entrance of her hiding spot, sealing her in. The red lights grew brighter. Metal boots crunched over fallen leaves. Moonlight stepped out of the cave. The hunters entered the clearing. 6 of them this time. Their weapons hummed with power, glowing faintly against the night. The leader raised his hand, signaling the others to spread out. They had learned from the last fight. This time, they were ready to surround him. Moonlight stood still, his tail low, his head lowered slightly. His muscles were coiled like springs. The wind carried the smell of metal and oil to his nose. One hunter stepped closer. "The human," he said in a harsh, mechanical voice. "Give her to us." Moonlight's ears twitched at the sound, but he didn't move. The leader raised his weapon. "Last chance, beast." Moonlight's growl rumbled through the clearing, deep and cold. His fur bristled, glowing faintly under the moonlight. He took a single step forward. The leader fired. The energy blast tore past Moonlight's shoulder, scorching the ground. In the same instant, he lunged. The clearing exploded into chaos. Moonlight slammed into the nearest hunter, knocking him to the ground. Claws flashed, metal tore, and sparks flew. A second hunter fired, but Moonlight twisted away, vanishing into the shadows of the trees. They turned, scanning the forest, but the wolf was gone. Then he came from behind. With a roar, he struck the leader, ripping the weapon from his hands and tossing it deep into the trees. A blast from another hunter grazed his side, but he ignored the pain. Focusing on keeping them away from the cave, one hunter tried to slip past him, heading toward the cave entrance. Moonlight saw him and leaped, his body a streak of silver light. His jaws closed on the hunter's arm, and the weapon clattered to the ground. But the hunters were skilled. They pressed him hard, forcing him back step by step. Moonlight's breath came in heavy bursts. Blood dripped from his side, staining the moss under his paws. His legs trembled, but he did not fall. He couldn't fall. Because behind him, in the darkness of the cave, she was waiting. The fight spilled into the open field, near the glowing crystal lake. Moonlight moved to keep the hunters in front of him, his body a wall of silver fur and muscle. Every time they tried to circle him, he forced them back. But they were many. And he was only one. A hunter's shot hit his shoulder. He stumbled but caught himself. Another charged from the left. Moonlight spun, slamming his body into him and sending both into the lake. The glowing water flared bright blue, swallowing the man's scream. The leader saw his chance. He aimed his weapon directly at Moonlight's chest. A small voice screamed from the cave entrance. No. The girl had come out. She was running toward him, her little hands clenched into fists, her face pale with fear. Moonlight's heart jolted. He pushed away from the hunter he was fighting and ran toward her. The leader fired. The shot hit Moonlight in the side, making his legs buckle, but he kept moving. With a final burst of strength, he reached the girl and placed himself between her and the hunters. His massive body shielded her completely. The hunters hesitated. The wolf was bleeding, barely standing, but his eyes burned. With a light that made even them step back, the leader gave a sharp signal. Slowly, the hunters began to retreat into the forest. Their mission had failed. They would have to return another day. When the last red light faded into the trees, the clearing fell silent. The girl knelt beside Moonlight, tears running down her cheeks. "You can't leave me," she whispered. Her small hands touched his fur, warm and wet with blood. Moonlight looked at her, his breathing heavy, his head lowered until his forehead rested against hers. He closed his eyes. The storm in his chest slowed. He was still alive. Weak, but alive. She smiled through her tears. "Guardian of the Moonlight," she said softly. "That's who you are." The days after the battle were quiet again, but this time, it was a different kind of quiet. The hunters had been driven away, their pride wounded. They might return, but not soon. The girl stayed close to Moonlight now, following him when he hunted, laughing when he splashed her with water from the stream. Her voice was stronger, her smile brighter. At night, under the silver light of the moon, they would sit together at the mouth of the cave, the alien wolf and the human child. Two lives from different worlds, bound by something deeper than blood. And though danger still waited beyond the trees, they knew one thing: whatever came, they would face it together, because he was her guardian, and she was his reason to fight. Forever.